Hi, I'm Rajan. Welcome to HackerHeap. In this video, we will look into what is data type and different data types in Java programming language. Before we proceed, if you are new here, please consider subscribing.
So what is a data type? Data type is an attribute of data which tells the compiler or interpreter how the programmer intends to use that data. So when you are giving the data to this particular programming language, so it has to know like what data type is it, so that the compiler and the interpreter can assume that. So for that case, Java has multiple data types. There are actually two sets of data types. One is primitive data type and non-primitive data type. Primitive data type is again divided into two kinds. One is the Boolean type and numeric type. Boolean type has the keyword Boolean data type, and numeric has char, byte, short, int, long, float, and double. And the other non-primitive data types, and the other one is non-primitive data types, which are string, which is an array of characters, and array can be like a set of array of any data types. So you can have an array of short, array of int, array of long, and all that stuff. And there are multiple other data types we will look into. We will see what these data types are and what kind of data they hold. So Boolean is used to store true or false values, whereas byte, short, int, and long are used to store whole numbers like 1, 2, 3 or -1, -2, -3. And float and double are used to store fractional numbers. Like if you want to store a value called 3.413, you need to use either float or double to store that value. So we will see the size of these data types and how they differ from each other. So we have these data types. The default value of byte, short, int, and long are zeros. Even for float and double, it's zero, but it is considered when you try to print it out, it will print out as like 0.0. And the size of the byte is 8 bits, and short is 16 bits, integer is 32 bits, and long is 64 bits. And you can also see the value ranges there. And the default value for char is that Unicode 0000, and the size is 16 bits. And whereas Boolean has only the size of 1 bit, where you can either store 0 or 1, and the default value for Boolean is false. We will look into how Boolean works. So when I say 8 bits, if you see the size of byte, it's 8 bits, and the default values ranges from -128 to 127. This is how it works. When you say the size of the data type is 8 bits, it takes 8 bits of memory spaces to power 0. If the size is 0 bits, and it can store the value of 1, if its size is 1, it stores the value range of 2 to -2 to 2. And similarly, since it's 8 bits, it stores the value of 2 power 7, which is -128 to 127. So now we will jump into programming and see how we can use these data types, and we will print out a couple of default values and other things. So let's start by creating a class and print out these different types of data types. And let's see the default values of these data types as we discussed earlier. So I'll go ahead and create a new class named basic data types. So I went ahead and created a basic data types, and let me declare it as a main. I went ahead and created a class basic data types. Let me declare the main method. Yes, I have declared a main method. I have declared a main method. Now let me declare all different kinds of data types, starting with byte. I went ahead and declared all the primitive data types that we seen earlier, and I'll be printing all these data types and see how they will be printed. I'll print the default values. So let me copy this print statement so that we can print all different data types. So let me change them to all different data types: short, int, long, float, double, Boolean, and character. I saved this file and let me go ahead and run and see what the default values would be. So if you see here, the default value of byte, as we discussed earlier, is 0, short is 0, int is 0, long is 0, and float and double are also 0, but it is represented in the fractional format. The value of Boolean is false, the default value, and the character is the Unicode 000, which is basically empty or a space. So these are all the default values. So let's go ahead and give some values to them. Like if I try to go ahead and give the byte value as 256, whereas the range of the byte is between 128 to 127. If you see this, if I entered the value 128, it already showed me the type was mismatched, and it asking me to try to cast it to byte or change the type of I to int. So it's not accepting the value. If I try to give 127, see, there is no issue there. Similar with short and other things. If I try to give like see, it showed the value exceeded, so it is asking me to convert into int or add a typecast to short. We will talk about typecasting later, but we'll see here. So let me go ahead and do that. If I try to give a normal value, it will take it, but when I try to print it, it will print in the decimal format. The same thing with the double. And I exceeded the limit here. For Boolean, it will take either false or true, which is represented as 0 or 1 on the back. Let me change it to true. And for character, it should be in the single quotes A, B, C. See, if I try to give ABC, it is already showing like it might ask me to change the type or something. So invalid character constant. Even if I give BC, it's still the same. It only takes one character. Let me go ahead and print it. So if you see here, for floating point, even though I gave that large value, it converted into the floating point automatically. It typecasted it. It's the same with the double. And yeah, everything else looks the same. But these are the basic primitive data types we used. The other two data types that we have seen are string and array, which are non-primitive. So let me go ahead and just define the string and array and see how we can store values. So for string, string is basically an array of characters. The string hello old. So yeah, I can define the same thing as a character array. Just cat string equal to new char of I need to define the character length so that this array can store all the 11 characters of hello world. So I went ahead and given that, and now I have to go ahead and define each character. Just char. So I went ahead and defined all the 11 values in the character array. It still shows me an error. What is this showing? Saying the syntax error expected something. So let's move this to the main class instead of outside it. So I had it here. So let me go ahead and print the string as well as this character array and see how it shows up. So the string is test string and test cast string. There we go. Let me go ahead and run it quickly and see how those both are displayed. So if you see here, the string value displayed as hello world, but the character array showed up as some ASCII characters. So the reason behind it is it prints the Unicode values of the character of the char array. To do this, we need to copy these values to the string. So what we can do is we can use the method of string value of. So if we see the string value of this character array, and let's run it. See, we got the hello world. It's both the same. So the string value of the character array is basically the string. It gets the value of that string. So this shows string is nothing but an array of characters that we demonstrated here. We have covered the primitive data types here. In the next video, we will look into different non-primitive data types and we will go into more complex data structures like hash map, linked list, array list, and all that stuff. Thank you.